So even though people keep on acting surprised about the 49ers offseason, we've actually known the direction that they've been headed in for quite some time. John Lynch even gave a fairly detailed blueprint of the 49ers plans nearly a month ago at the NFL Scouting Combine. Lynch is going to continue speaking at certain events over the course of the offseason. Yesterday was one of them. He was at Stanford's Pro Day. Yes, that is John Lynch, GM of the 49ers, with Andrew Luck, the GM of Stanford football, just up 101. Both Stanford alums, and Andrew Luck actually said that John Lynch has been on speed dial for him as far as any information that he needs to become a good GM, because this is Andrew Luck's first season on the job. Anyway, John Lynch at Stanford's Pro Day, watching some of the prospects there. Elik Iomanner, the big wide receiver. I remember doing a show on this guy a couple years ago after a Friday night football game against Colorado. Deion Sanders, Travis Hunter, and all those guys, they couldn't contain Elik Iomanner, and Stanford won big in Colorado. Lynch, Leonard Hankerson, the 49ers were watching Stanford's prospects, but then Lynch also had a chance to talk a little bit about the 49ers. And Matt Barrows and Cam Inman covered it well. One of the quotes was big things coming from John Lynch, and another quote was requisite room. And I'll contextualize both of these. Again, nothing groundbreaking, nothing truly new from John Lynch. He spoke about this at the Combine over 3 weeks ago. He's going to speak about this in more detail at the owners' meetings in West Palm Beach in less than 2 weeks. Look forward to talking to him, talking to Jed York, and talking to Kyle Shanahan, all three at those meetings. I think that's going to be a very important milestone in this offseason to chart the 49ers' progress. But Lynch has repeatedly now talked about the fact that the 49ers have pared this down around foundational pieces. And we've highlighted who those foundational pieces are in yellow here. I've now added red to the roster to show where the 49ers have the roster holes they're going to need to fix through the draft or fill through the draft. And John Lynch is somebody who is not shy about the fact that the 49ers are putting a lot of chips on the table in the NFL draft. It is the same formula that the Rams have used. Obviously, the Rams disciples in the executive ranks, such as James Gladstone in Jacksonville, are using the same formula. The 49ers giving precedence to rookies instead of mediocre or overpaid veteran talent. It wouldn't be the first time that this is used in the NFL. It is an emphasis on the cost-controlled flow of talent through the NFL draft in a young man's league. It makes a whole lot of sense. We're going to see how the 49ers do with their league-high 11 picks. But two of the things that Lynch said, requisite room, the 49ers need that for some bigger veteran transactions that will be coming this offseason. He also said big things coming, which ties right into why they need requisite room. The three transactions that the 49ers are looking at in terms of foundational pillars. So again, back to the roster. This is how you build one in the NFL. They've got 7 All-Pros still on the team. That's why the 49ers have the third highest odds to win the NFC this year, even though some people would act like they're in contention for the number 1 pick. But the pillars of the team are going to be what structurally keep this and your Super Bowl chances afloat. So Brock Purdy at quarterback, you'd like to have one, at least one at every position group. Christian McCaffrey at running back, Kyle Juszczyk at fullback, George Kittle at tight end, Trent Williams along the offensive line, Nick Bosa at defensive end, Fred Warner at linebacker, and Deommodore Lenoir at cornerback. I think in an ideal world, Malik Mustafa develops into a foundational pillar this offseason. Or this season. He's got to put another season worth on tape. And the 49ers are able to draft and develop a defensive tackle as a foundational pillar there, so they can add another shade of yellow in the defensive line room, because that's a big room where you would like to have at least 2 of those guys. I think offensive line, your center would ideally be a foundational pillar. Jake Brendel is not going to be that for the 49ers, but maybe Dominic Pooney can emerge into that. Anyway, while you're focused on building around the foundational pillars, and obviously the 49ers are doing that through cost-efficient free agency and the NFL draft, while you're doing that, you've also got to make sure that the pillars themselves stay strong, under contract, taken care of, You pay your A-list players. You reward those players. And, back to this, they also need one at wide receiver. Maybe Brandon Ayuk can reemerge into that coming off of his injury, because he's probably not going to be traded given the fact that he tore apart his knee last season. And the 49ers do really need somebody like Brandon Ayuk. We can get a little bit further into that by looking at the 49ers' performance last year against man coverage. It wasn't good, and it's not Brock Purdy's fault. He was awesome against zone, which is on the x-axis, but they weren't good against man because the 49ers weren't getting any separation last year. And one of the main reasons that wasn't happening is because Brandon Ayuk was either hurt or not playing all too well coming off of the contract. If he can return to anything close to 2023 levels, that helps a lot. If Christian McCaffrey can be on the field, that will help a lot. But this is one of the 49ers' biggest concerns, and it traces back to here. They need Brandon Ayuk to reemerge as a foundational pillar of this football team. That's what it would look like. It would look a whole lot better for the 49ers. Anyway, big things coming. You talk about the fact that you need to reinforce the pillars. You need to make sure you have pillars at every position, but reinforcing them means, Brock Purdy is taken care of contractually this offseason. So when you talk about the requisite room the 49ers need, this is all part of the natural shift in strategy that every NFL team that sees a drafted quarterback succeed has to go through. This is not unique to the 49ers. 49ers, what's unique to them is that they have 7 All-Pros on the roster even after an efficiency house cleaning. They still have 7 All-Pros, the next most 3 in the NFC West on an NFC West roster. So San Francisco is still loaded with talent. And when you've been so loaded with talent over so many years, and the quarterback has come up from pick number 262 and had been making an average of less than $1 million per year, and suddenly that's going to balloon into what, 50 plus million, 60 plus million? I don't know where it's going to be. It's going to be exponentially larger than it used to be. The cost structure of your team is going to change. This is just a business reality of the world and of the NFL. So the 49ers absolutely had to make sure that this was constructed soundly, that there weren't weeds here, that there wasn't inefficient build here, that they had the pillars and now they could build soundly around it. Efficiency is a real thing, and across multiple facets of life and business. And the 49ers, as far as building this to be a well-oiled machine, building this to hum along into the future, had to recognize the fact that the fulcrum now is Brock Purdy. So that's piece one to take care of. That business, obviously, moving down the pipeline for the 49ers. I'm still getting good vibes out of that negotiation. And I want to rewind to when Brock Purdy spoke after the season ended. And I listened to it again, and a huge point of emphasis for him seemed to be getting something done before OTAs. He really, really wants to work with the 49ers. Now, that's still a couple months away. The NFL draft is going to hit in late April. Then there's going to be rookie mini camp, and then that offseason program will begin. And the offseason program for the 49ers is going to be, I think, important to reset the momentum this year. They came off of 3 straight seasons in which they played 20 games entering 2024. And obviously there were some distractions in the offseason in 2024, headlined by Brandon Ayuk. But the OTAs, I thought, were still marked by fatigue. Training camp was still marked by fatigue. They're, coming off of running 3 straight marathons. This year, there should be some pep in the 49ers step. They should be spry. They should be ready to attack those OTAs once they come in May. And you would like to have the contractual business taken care of by then for Brock Purdy, so that your franchise centerpiece can be at practice without reserve and delivering the leadership and delivering the work that the 49ers will need. So that's going to be a big one. And then there are 2 other big ones. Other, people wondering, well, what are the other pillars that the 49ers have to take care of? Well, George Kittle is, I think, going to require a contract extension. He has 1 year left on his deal, and he should be the highest paid tight end in the entire NFL. He is the best tight end in the NFL. He's headed toward the Hall of Fame. He's going to be 32 years old this season. And I think the 49ers, based on their offseason moves, have set this up for George Kittle to be a more featured part of the pass game. Because what's happened at the tight end position is they added Luke Farrell right next to George Kittle. And Farrell, he's a very good pass blocker. For a lighter guy, he's not an offensive tackle. He has taken on some defensive ends in pass protection, been one of the best in the game at the tight end position. And we know that the 49ers, with some of the shortcomings of their offensive line, had often turned to George Kittle to block and stay back in and not go out for a pass pattern. Well, that starts to become an issue when Kittle's your most productive receiver with somebody like Brandon Ayuk out, and there's games where Jawan Jennings couldn't play, and you have to decide between, well, do we want some downfield capability offensively, or do we need to have George Kittle sitting back there and blocking? And without Charlie Warner on the team last year, there probably were some times where the 49ers wish they could have deployed George Kittle on a pass pattern, but just due to the schematic nature and the matchup nature of what was going on, they couldn't. So he stayed back. This year, I think you have more adaptability with Luke Farrell in there. And obviously, there are the entire permutations of 22 personnel, 12 personnel. 21 personnel is not something that would probably feature Luke Farrell if George Kittle is healthy. But the fact that the 49ers have Kyle Juszczyk back aboard does enhance their offensive adaptability. Anyway, Kittle's going to be a bigger part of this downfield pass game. You want to extend him so his contract at least mirrors that of Kyle Juszczyk, and maybe you want to extend him even further. That's going to require a handover of cash from the 49ers. Brock Purdy is going to require a signing bonus, a big handover of cash. I don't know if the signing bonus is going to be $70 million like Jared Goff's. And the Detroit Lions obviously had a little bit more money to throw around at that point since the team was still in the build phase. But however the 49ers structure Brock Purdy's contract will require upfront guaranteed money. However they do George Kittle's deal to make sure that he's not playing on a lame duck season is going to require an upfront big investment. And the third one that people aren't talking about as much yet, but I think when you talk about big things coming, Fred Warner, because he's one of the foundational pillars, unquestionably. You've just lost Dre Greenlaw, even though you wanted to keep him, but you weren't really able or willing to make him a foundational pillar because you've got one at linebacker. I don't know of any team for the long run that is able to keep both in this era. I know that the 49ers back in the day with Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman had two of them, but Willis's career was ending when Bowman was moving off of his rookie deal. So the 49ers were able to keep two overlapping for some time. They had three foundational guys back when Azeez Al-Shire was around in 2011. 49ers fans probably shouldn't take that granted anymore, but they now are going to be looking at D. Winters to try to fill some shoes. It's still a long off season, so we'll see how Winters emerges. And, you know, they've got Curtis Robinson, Luke Gifford, and Jalen Graham ready to compete behind him. We'll see what the NFL draft brings, but we do know that Fred Warner is the centerpiece. They had an exercise, a $3.6 million buyback option by February 12th, which obviously has passed. So Warner got a $3.6 million bonus this offseason so that he would not see his contract expire. So he's under contract right now for 2025 and 2026. But just like George Kittle, as that lame duck year approaches, and by extension, Brock Purdy is in the similar boat. It's going to be a lame duck year for Brock Purdy. You start thinking about an extension. Warner, unlike Kittle and unlike Purdy, has 2 years left under contract, but he's at $17.65 million of base salary and due compensation this year. He did get that buyback bonus, so technically the compensation for Fred Warner, if we add that to the base salary, is about $21 million this season. Will that be enough to satisfy the best linebacker in the game for the time being? I think so, but I think that the 49ers might try to get out ahead of this as far as an extension goes. The highest paid linebacker in the league right now is Roquan Smith at $20 million per year. Warner's at $19 million per year. Obviously, $21 million plus of compensation is coming his way. But by the time we get to 2026, it's only a base salary of $17.6 million for Fred Warner, which would rank a little bit lower at that linebacker position in APY. That would be about number 4. It would be tied with Zach Bond, who had a fantastic year, by the way, for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that by 2026, the market price for Fred Warner is going to shoot on up. And yes, this is a guy that's going to hit 30 years old in 2026, but I think we could confidently say that Fred Warner is probably going to be giving you prime football into his 30s. Somebody like Bobby Wagner is showing that the greats are able to deliver at a very high level, even into their mid-30s. So will the 49ers maybe even try to get something done with Fred Warner this offseason? They're moving toward trying to get these extensions done earlier. We saw it with Deommodore Lenoir. I think we're going to see it with Brock Purdy because there should be an emphasis on getting him in before OTAs. And obviously, you're going to want to get one done here with George Kittle before he enters his lame duck season. Those are the 49ers' 3 foundational pillars who are going to be the center of contractual discussions this offseason. So we definitely need to keep our eyes on that. Make sure you check out the San Francisco Standard when we talk about John Lynch and the foundational pillar plan. Something the Rams have done. All those rookies that flooded the Rams will be ready for that. 49ers are going to welcome a lot of rookies around their core pieces. But San Francisco's still number 3 overall odds to win the NFC because they've got 7 All-Pros on this roster. So yes, big things are coming both through the draft and contractually for San Francisco. This has been your morning alarm update.